Hello chess friends and welcome to the of Chess channel and welcome to the day 2 of the FTX Crypto Cup tournament in 2022. We're following now a beautiful match game between the top grandmasters Giri and of course the prodigy Praggnanandhaa. So this game is really important. Yesterday Praggnanandhaa won his beautiful match game against Alireza Firouzja, so it was the duel of youth, and Giri lost this game yesterday against the world champion Magnus Carlsen. So Pragu had now here really a great opportunity to take the lead in the tournament, of course with some other players that could have also 2 wins after 2 games, but today Anish wanted to probably also have a better game, especially because of the loss against the Magnus Carlsen. So let's see now what happened. The first 3 games ended in a draw. We're now in the game 4, which could be a decisive one. Now Anish Giri is playing with the white pieces and Praggnanandhaa is playing now with the black pieces. So let's see now what happened. It was an incredible game. So here Anish opened with the move d4. Praggnanandhaa's response was knight to f6, c4, and after e6 now Anish played knight to c3, invited basically here Praggnanandhaa to play the move bishop to b4 to going into the Nimzo Indian defense. Most of the times now grandmasters these days are playing the anti-Nimzo or counter Nimzo Indian setup, but Anish is saying, okay, I want to create maybe a more dynamic game, is playing now knight to c3, and here Praggnanandhaa response was of course, as we said, bishop to b4, e3. We have now the normal line. The idea about this normal line is to play in some occasions bishop to d3, knight to e2, and then to play a3. Then basically when you place the knight on e2, then you have of course the opportunity to recapture the knight on c3 with your other knight, and then you don't have such a messed up pawn structure. So in the continuation Praggnanandhaa simply castles, which is perfectly fine, securing the king. Bishop to d3, now comes this idea, and now d5, and this game transposes now into the similar structures like in the Ragozin defense, where you're playing knight to f6, d5, bishop to b4. You're challenging basically immediately here white center. You're challenging of course also the knight, and now finally after move a3, bishop to c3 was played, and now b takes c3. So okay, let's stop and evaluate a little bit position, because many things have changed now. We have to say that white has now a bishop pair on the board. The good thing about the bishop pair is that you can actually improve it. You can play c takes d5. You don't have to have this double pawn structure till the end of the game. You can really undouble your pawns. That's, I think, the cool thing about Anish Giri's setup here. And then eventually you can also break through further with another move, c4 move, pardon me. You can still play with your other pawn maybe and create some dynamics here on the queen side. The downside, I think, about this position for white is this bad bishop on c1. It is temporarily blocked out by this pawn structure c3, d4, and by this pawn on a3. So basically the main strategy of blacks here is to play sort of a bad bishop strategy. And we have also a very important strategy when you are playing like Praggnanandhaa has here, knight and bishop. Maybe we can call this knight bishop versus maybe the bishop pair middle game. Then actually one of the strategic ideas can be also to trade off this Lycra bishop for this Lycra bishop on d3. So that's why after move d takes c4, bishop to c4, here c5, d takes c5 doesn't make sense. Okay, you took the pawn, but now c3 is weak, c5 is weak, a3 is weak. You have really a messed up pawn structure. So that's why here after move c5, knight to f3 was played by Anish, normal development. And now after queen to c7, there is now this threat, c takes d4, discovered attack against the bishop. So that's why bishop to e2, we have b6, bishop to b2, and now after c takes d4, c takes d4, we can still notice that actually the game didn't change dramatically. I think still it's a bad bishop strategy, because this bishop is still a little bit blocked out by its own pawn structure. So that's, I think, the downside about this particular line for white. So that's why here Praggnanandhaa plays a beautiful move. It is, we have to say, it's sort of a drawish line for black, but when you're playing with black, I think a simplification, drawish ideas are perfectly fine. Actually, white wants to get more out of this opening. So after move bishop to a6, again, Pragu is saying, I will slow down the pace of the game. I will not allow you here to play with the bishop pair all over the board or in such an open game, of course. So that's why here Anish Giri simply castled. We have queen to b7. We have rook to e1. Now here Anish is trying maybe to get somehow this e4 breakthrough. If this happens, maybe e4 d5, then of course this bishop could be very interesting. But so far the knight is controlling the square, the queen is controlling e4 and d5. So white is not getting this goal. In order to support maybe the e4, you have to play something like bishop to d3. But look at this, Praggu is already trading off your powerful bishop here. So as I said, really nice sort of Karpov play here by the young prodigy. So that's why bishop to e2, queen to e2. Now Praggu is preparing probably the move e4. We have now knight to d7. We have e4, and now maybe with the support of the rook to d1, maybe d5, white could have a good game, especially now with this long diagonal with the Dutch bishop. So we have now rook from a to c8, h3, creating some breathing spaces for the king, but also in some occasions white could be challenged with moves like e5, then knight to g4 could be an opportunity. So that's why here with the move h3, it's sort of a double function move by Anish, not allowing also this very important knight move. So now Praggu is saying, okay, the only slightly advantage that I have maybe in this position here from black's perspective is maybe this 2 versus 1 pawn majority. Of course white has a dominant position in the center of the board, has now also the long diagonal for the dark bishop, but Praggu is sensing where he could be better. So that's why b5, very nice move. We have a rook from a to d1, and now h6, creating also some breathing spaces here for the king on the king side. So here the continuation, knight to h2, and this move I really didn't understand. Maybe here it was simply time now just to break through with the move d5, then the game could lead into something like this, e takes d5, but now e5, pardon me, it's very interesting. Even if you try here to cement the knight on e4, then look at this, knight to d4, and I like this idea, knight to f5, maybe queen to g4. This could be really a cool game. The queen would be a little bit paralyzed here, blocked out by its own pawn, and I would love now here the position for white more than, I have to say it, I would really love to play now for instance this position from white's perspective more than black. Maybe in some occasions even, I don't know, queen to g4, e6 seems interesting. Even if you take here knight to e5, then knight to f5 could be an opportunity here, f3, kicking away the knight. The bishop is now finally developed, so it's quite an interesting position that Anish could have produced. But again, Anish played a slightly passive move. It's not the worst move of course in the world, but it's not doing so much. Of course the idea is clear, we want to play knight to g4, maybe queen to g4, then maybe some ideas of d5. So here Praggu is saying, okay, you are having your fun on the king side, but I have to be active on that side where I'm better. So that's why b4, beautiful move by Praggu. We have a takes b4, queen to b4, and now comes what is in my opinion the critical moment of the game. Here Anish played the move rook to d3, and okay, again it seems so that this is perfectly fine because you want to play probably rook to g3, knight to g4, including maybe the queen and rook on the g file, trying some wild ideas if possible on the g file. But now comes actually the stunner of the game. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for black. Praggu saw this move immediately. He's so tactically great, the young prodigy from India. He found really a beautiful tactical shot. So as I said, maybe try to see now the best continuation from this point on. I think the game went into Praggu's direction, and here he played. I hope you can really see this move because it's beautiful. Here Praggu found a beautiful rook to c2. It's a deflection idea from this rook on e1. You have to react here. If you don't react, you lose simply the bishop on b2. So the line that's helping out white, that's just prolonging the game a little bit, is the move bishop to a3, counter attack. But now look at this, it leads now basically into a forced tactical sequence. Rook to e2, bishop to b4, now also a check. But now after bishop to e1, the problem is now you have lost the pawn on e4. So as I said, e4 was the goal of whites in the middle game stage, to push the pawn like this, but it becomes now a huge problem, and now Pragg is simply continuing the game with an extra pawn with the passer on the a file. And also we have to say this is a weak pawn, this is now an isolated pawn, it's on a dark square, which also blocks out a little bit the bishop's activity, so much better position now for black. So d5, here Anish is trying desperately to somehow simplify the game. We have a knight to c5 attacking now the rook to a3 attacking now the pawn, and now after e takes d5 we have f3 kicking with the knight to g5, and here Anish Giri took now this annoying pawn on the a file. But of course Pragg has now the opportunity to include the rook into the game, and could have also played probably something like rook to d8, just pushing the pawn further, supporting now the passer on the d file. So rook to a1, knight to e6, so here d4, whenever you have the opportunity to push it, just do it, perfectly fine. Here knight to g4, and now Pragg searches for new opportunities with the rook, maybe here to get on the second rank, maybe include the knight on f4 is interesting, maybe targeting the g2 weakness, many opportunities for black. So basically white is battling here, struggling just to get the draw. So bishop to g3 attacking the rook to b3, knight to f2, this knight is coming now into the game, knight to c3, very nice move. We want to include more attackers into the game, so this is the way to go, perfectly fine. We have rook to a1, and now king to h7. So when the position is static like this, when nothing dramatically can change, I think, in the position, then you can also include the king into the game, because black's king cannot of course be endangered by the pieces of white, so perfectly fine. Bishop to d6, knight to d5, we have king to g1, and now king to g6, getting the king towards the center of the board. So okay, maybe there are better moves when it comes to computer evaluations, but this is rapid chess. This is perfectly fine what Pragg is doing here. He's applying basically the normal principles of chess. So here in the continuation we have rook to e1, we have h5. This is also beautiful. For instance, the move h4 could a little bit paralyze a little bit further the position on the king side. Also nice move by Pragg. Bishop to e5, knight to e3 is coming now very active into the game, and we have now knight to e4. For instance, if you try maybe some ideas of bishop to d4 to somehow get rid of this knight, still you see the knight is protected by the rook. So here Pragg also showed this his tactical awareness here. He didn't allow maybe some wild tactical shots that could maybe lead into a draw. So here in the continuation we have knight to e4 by Anish Giri. We have h4. Now comes this brilliant paralyzing idea, knight to f2, and now knight to c4. Now Pragg is trying here maybe d3 d2 support somehow the further progress of this pawn on the d file. We have bishop to h2, probably maybe bishop to d4 is an opportunity to get rid of at least simplify the game, knight to d4, and maybe to do something like this. Then the game leads into knight to f3. This was still complicated. We have to also say the players were long clock. The g takes f3, maybe here after move knight to d2, maybe attacking the rook, you could maybe just play a check, but now you could take out this one, but also here black can also take out the pawn on f3, and then maybe can eventually protect the pawn on f7. So this was, I think, the only way for Anish Giri to make some kind of a drawish position, but he played a passive move, bishop to h2, so he didn't dare to play this tactical shot, and here Pragg simply continues his progress with the d pawn. So we have knight to e4, we have d2, rook to d1, and now rook to d3. Everything perfectly fine. So we have now king to f1, and now beautiful move again by Pragg, f5. This is really a beautiful move, because many of us, I think, would rush into the attack and would play something like knight to e3. Still, it's probably a much better position, but at least in this position white king can come here. You can maybe take out this one, but still, as I said, probably a winning position for black, but it's still too complicated. So that's why I remove king to f1, f5. We have knight to f2 attacking now the rook to d7, and now rook to a1, and now knight to e3, simply playing a nice check. We have king to e2, and now this other knight comes beautifully into the game. Really nice tactical shot by Pragg. If you take, of course, the knight on e3, then you get the fork, knight to c2, and the game should be over. So that's why after move knight to d4 we have king takes d2, but it comes now with the new problem, knight to b3. This is again a beautiful fork, really nice tactical shot. King takes e3, and after knight to a1, here Praggnanandhaa has a position where simply up the exchange, and this should be also perfectly fine. This should be also winning for black. So we have here knight to d3. Praggnanandhaa improves now the position, gets the pieces back into the game. Knight to c2 comes with the check. King to e2, knight to d4. Again, a couple of checks. We have king to h5, and the cool part is that in this occasions you can play sometimes even just some perpetuals to get some extra time on the clock. We have to say it, in this particular position the players had around 2 minutes on the clock, so it was still so complicated to find now, as I said, simply the best sort of top engine move. So after move king to h5, knight to f4, we have king to h6, knight to d3, and here Praggnanandhaa delivers another check. King to e3, knight to e6, and now f4. This seems very okay, because now at least white is trying to keep everything glued together, everything compact, but you have to find now simply plan. So a plan, I think, in these types of positions, when the pawn structure is symmetrical like this, when no passers can be created, actually here the idea of blacks is simply just to create one pass pawn. However, it's so hard to make it, because you see it's a 3 versus 3, perfect 3 versus 3 situation here on the king side. If the pawn structure would be slightly asymmetrical, maybe here 3 pawns maybe more towards the queen side, maybe 1 pawn more towards the king side, then the pawns could be rolling, the pawns could create a pattern. Now it's very hard to make that happen, but let's see now how here Praggnanandhaa played this beautiful endgame. So we have here rook to a7, bishop to g1, rook to a3, paralyzing a little bit the knight. Now the idea is, of course, knight to f4 to get rid of the king, and then simply take out the knight on d3. So that's why king to e2, we have another check. Again, the king comes on f3. We have king to h5, bishop to e3, and now you see this both of these pieces are now lined up on the 3rd rank. We have king to e2, and now here a rook to b3. So you see it's still a battle, it's still a struggle here by Anish. He's trying to not finally force a draw here. We have knight to e5, we have rook to b4, again a couple of perpetuals, and for king to f3, knight to c7. So finally Praggnanandhaa, I think, found at least some kind of a plan. Here also an idea could have been a knight to d5, then maybe knight to f6, and also then to cement maybe the knight on e4. Seems, I think, like a normal idea. So we have here bishop to d2, knight to d5, king to e2, and now again a pin here on the 2nd rank. Maybe also now some ideas of knight to c3 are working, or some other ideas. So here in the continuation we have king to e1, knight to f6. Now the knight wants to be maneuvered on a beautiful square. We have knight to f2, and now in my opinion this is now the move that is, I think, solving many position problems. At least in this scenario, Praggnanandhaa will trade off one of these pieces. That's now the most important thing here to notice. That's why here knight to e4 was played, and now after FTX e4, in my opinion, mission accomplished. As we said, we want to create just a passer here. We want to create somehow that could deflect the king, that could deflect the bishop a little bit, and now this is, in my opinion, completely winning. f5, we have rook to b2, king to e2, rook to b5 attacking. We have now rook takes f5, bishop to g7, but it doesn't matter, because still you see you have some worries about this pawn. You have to also notice these pawns are on light squares, so these pawns cannot be protected by the dark square bishop. That's a huge issue. We have bishop to d4, rook to g2, king to e3, now a new check, and after a rook to h3 it's really over. We have rook to f4, but now rook to b3 cuts off now the potential king's ability to play. We have bishop to f2, h3, bishop to g1, and now here after rook to b2 in this position Anish Giri resigned. So it means now Praggnanandhaa won his 2nd game, his 2nd match game yesterday. He outplayed Alireza Firouzja, so he beat two strong grandmasters, really the top 5 grandmasters in some time format. So it's really incredible how Praggnanandhaa is playing the game. He's playing so solid with the black pieces. With the white pieces he's also basically unbeatable. I really love his chess more and more, and he's now really becoming really one of the best players in the world. I'm really looking forward to watch his career more, because this is incredible how young he still is, how he still can make progress. But here he's beating top grandmasters like Alireza, like Magnus Carlsen, for instance. He beat also many times, so he has now, I think, also cool chances maybe to win the whole thing. So okay, really great result. I think that this will be a very dynamic tournament, especially because of the fact that Magnus Carlsen also won his game today. So we'll see what will happen. Many things can change already tomorrow. So far, in my opinion, really beautiful event that has been played so in this tournament. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more from this event, check out also our yesterday's game, Giri versus Magnus Carlsen. If you want to see also some other commented games that we have analyzed in the past, maybe from some other tournaments, you can also check out my commented chess games playlist here. Really some cool games from the past. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.